Following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers, this is the TFangy coming to you with what will hopefully be a successful review, and today we're going to be taking a look at a Transformers figure that I've been excited to add to my collection ever since it was announced. And so without further delay, here is the Transformers Legacy Evolution Amazon exclusive Leader Class Nova Prime. So yeah, I have been waiting for Nova Prime to come. I'm glad he's finally here. I'm thrilled to finally have an action figure of him in my Transformers collection. Before this figure was released, every other figure of Nova Prime that was released was a third-party exclusive figure. So this is the since this is the first ever Hasbro released figure, this is the first action figure where Nova Prime has his name that was given to him in the Transformers comic books. So yeah, there's some really nice, impressive artwork here of him in an action pose. Up there on the top of the artwork of the box art, you've got the 4 characters released in the first wave of the Legacy Evolution Amazon exclusive IDW Transformers figures. You got Minor Megatron and Senator Ratbat facing off against Senator Shockwave and Orion Pax. Noah Prime was actually teased in the box art for the Senator Shockwave and Orion Pax Humble Origins 2-pack, which I haven't reviewed yet, but I will show that off when I get around to reviewing that figure. So yeah, you got some really nice artwork here of Noah Prime on his box. You've got the artwork continuing up here to the top of the box. On this side of the box, you got the poster image for the Legacy Evolution line. But box art on the other side of the box art with Nova Prime continues on around this side, and you've got some generic Transformers sitting there on a stadium and watching Nova Prime. And so coming on here, the back of the box, you got your product photos. You got Nova Prime in his full robot mode, his vehicle mode of a Cybertronian truck, and his a smaller tractor cab robot, and the tractor cab section of his truck vehicle mode. He transforms back and forth between his full robot mode to the truck mode in just 20 steps. He transforms from the inner robot to the truck mode in just 18 steps, and then he transforms from the inner robot to the tractor cab section in 13 steps. So, for those of you who haven't been collecting Transformers figures for a while, and for those who have, you know that Nova Prime is a retool of the Transformers War for Cybertron Trilogy Siege Galaxy Upgrade, or Cybertron Optimus Prime figure that was released back in 2019, and that figure itself was a repaint and a retool of Transformers Siege Ultra Magnus. So it's incredible how this mold started off as the Siege Cybertron alt mode version of Ultra Magnus, and it's now become Nova Prime. A lot of Transformers fans and collectors were hoping that Nova Prime might be his own distinct mold, partially because in IDW's comic books he transforms into a long-nosed semi-truck instead of a flat-nosed one. But I personally can't complain because I'm just thrilled to finally have an action figure of this character in my Transformers collection. So some brief background history. For those of you wondering who Nova Prime actually is, he's one of the villains that was introduced to the Transformers franchise on the pages of IDW's comic books. And what's remarkable about Nova Prime, what distinguishes him from other Transformers characters, is that even though here on the box art it actually acknowledges that he's not actually has no factions, in later issues of IDW's comics, Nova Prime was made out to be an Autobot due to the fact that he has the word Prime in his name, and that when he was younger he actually carried the matrix of leadership for a time. So what happened with Nova Prime was one day he went off to explore outer space, and his spacecraft ended up getting sucked into a dimension known as the Dead Universe. And the Dead Universe, as its name implies, is a universe that's devoid of life, and if any life forms enter, they automatically get killed. But for some reason, Nova Prime became the first ever life form to, after entering the Dead Universe, he didn't die and he continued to survive living there. And the power of the Dead Universe showed Nova Prime, it twisted his logic, and it made him realize that the only true peace that life forms know is after they die and they're dead. And so Nova Prime decided that he wanted to end the chaos of the Transformers race by bringing the power of the Dead Universe into the original regular universe and unleashed it. And when that plan was foiled by the Transformers, Nova Prime ended up absorbing the power of the dead universe inside his body, and he ended up transforming into Nemesis Prime. So yeah, that's who Nova Prime is. Even more so than other evil Autobot Transformers characters such as Sentinel Prime from Transformers Dark of the Moon. No, it's Nova Prime who, out of all the Autobot Transformers characters in the Transformers franchise, he's the most evil of all the Autobots, and he's the closest Autobot who's come to being a borderline Decepticon on without actually adorning a Decepticon faction symbol on him. And again, here because all the other action figures that have been released in the Amazon exclusive IDW Legacy Evolution characters, Nova Prime is actually factionless, so this action figure of him doesn't have any Autobot logos, but then that continues the unofficial trend started with his third-party action figures, which are factionless as well due to copyright reasons. So yeah, it's really funny to see that Nova Prime is actually a factionless Transformer, so you can have him be either an Autobot or a Decepticon if you desire. But another thing that makes Nova Prime unique is that he's basically, I I guess you could argue that Nova Prime's like the Transformers equivalent of Darth Vader, where he starts out as a hero but ends up becoming a villain. And I love another thing that makes Nova Prime unique is that his paint job of mostly white with black and gold highlights, it basically gives him a somewhat of an angelic appearance. So he's kind of like a fallen angel where he started off peaceful but then became sinister. So it's a really nice. That was a really interesting choice on IDW's part to give Nova Prime that appearance. So yeah, that's basically who Nova Prime is. He's he's basically like the other Transformers characters who are tyrants who try to bring about the extinction of the Transformers, such as G-Axis from Transformers Generation 2 or Galvatron from Transformers Generation 1. And he actually interacts with those characters in IDW's comic books. They end up becoming Nova Prime's crew of Transformers who enter the dead universe, survive, and then come back to the regular Transformers universe to bring peace through death. That's basically a summary of who Nova Prime is. He's a former Matrix of Leadership bearer. He was one of the Autobots' leaders, like Optimus Prime, but after traveling through the dead universe, Nova Prime realized peace through death was the only type of peace that the Transformers race could embrace. And so yeah, he's a very despicable Transformers character. So character. So that's character. So it's very interesting the story of the Dead Universe. The Dead Universe was featured most recently in the Netflix Transformers War for Cybertron Trilogy cartoon, specifically Earthrise and Kingdom. And a lot of Transformers fans and collectors wondered if Nova Prime might be there. Either he didn't appear in those cartoons, but recently in the final scene of the online Transformers video game Transformers Devastation, right at the very end of the video game, there's if you activate the bonus final boss level at the very end of the game, it's shown that there's Energon traveling down into the center of Cybertron, and it's revealed where the energy is going to is a broken stasis pod that has Nova Prime inside of it. So in the final screenshot of the Transformers video game, Transformers Devastation, Nova Prime is shown waking up and coming online. And Transformers fans who played Transformers Devastation, who read the IDW comic books with Nova Prime in them, wondered if there might be a sequel video game where Nova Prime would be a boss villain for the video game. Unfortunately, Devastation never got a sequel game, and so Nova Prime's teaser at the end of the video game, that's been his only appearance outside of IDW's comic books, was at the end of Transformers Devastation. Whether or not Hasbro will decide to one day feature Nova Prime in one of the Transformers cartoon shows is uncertain at this point, but considering the fact that Hasbro's tried to maintain some type of normalcy for the Transformers franchise where the Autobots are peaceful and the Decepticons are the evildoers, having an evil Autobot might confuse younger Transformers fans. But the overall consensus is that Transformers fans in general have wholeheartedly embraced Nova Prime ever since he was introduced, and I'll explain why that's true in just a moment. So without further delay, let's get Nova Prime out of his box and take a close look at him in robot mode. Alright, and so here is Nova Prime out of his box, transformed into his robot mode, and armored up with all of his accessory pieces. And um, for being a repaint slash retool of the Siege Cybertron Optimus Prime figure, which itself was a repaint and retool of Siege Ultra Magnus, Nova Prime is pretty impressive looking. I really enjoy how he came out. There's a close up of his robot mode head, the full robot mode head. And one thing to note about it is that be careful with the horns on the side of his head. I believe they are a part of the head sculpt itself. They aren't separate pieces, but on Amazon's website in the official product photos, one of Nova Prime's horns is cracked, and ready to fall off. So just be careful with these horns, because if you're too rough with Nova Prime's head, those horns could break easily. So just take note of that. But yeah, I'm really thrilled with how Nova Prime came out, and I just really enjoy that face sculpt. It's like, I love the balance that IDW had, and the way the designers at Hasbro and Cartoon continued it, where when you look at Nova Prime's face, it's like, okay, he looks like someone you can trust, but then at the same time, he looks like someone you can't trust. So I love how they found that perfect balance of when you look at Nova Prime's face, you're like, okay, is this guy good or evil? It's really hard to tell. Also, yeah, I love that you can basically look at Nova Prime before he entered the Dead Universe, and like, oh yeah, he's someone you can trust, and then after he enters the Dead Universe and he comes back and he's like, oh, you take a look at it, the same exact face, and you're like, oh no, I wouldn't trust him for an instant. So yeah, I just really enjoy how the designers at Hasbro and Tomy were able to convey that idea here with the head sculpt here on Nova Prime. Parts of him that are new apart from the head are of course, his robot mode wings. That's one of the features that made Nova Prime distinguished from other Transformers characters, is that he was given wings similar to Generation 1 Predaking. And well, I've seen too many Transformers fans and collectors already complain that they don't like the design of Nova Prime's wings. I don't care. I just enjoy having a figure of Nova Prime in my Transformers collection at last. Other new parts include his new shoulder pads, the new robot mode chest. The abdomen is a new sculpted piece, but apart from those pieces of his robot mode, the other parts that are new sculpting, which you can't really see, are the windshield pieces of his alt mode, which we'll see when we get to the inner robot, and then of course the inner robot mode head is also a new sculpted piece. But apart from those, everything else about this guy is the same as Siege Ultra Magnus and Siege Galaxy Upgrade Cybertron Optimus Prime. The backpack and the cannons on his back are the same. Same sculpted parts. The arms are the same. The wheels are the same. And the legs are the same. In fact, the entire lower body from the pelvis down is the same. Same shin guns there on the knees. The same laser gun that came with Galaxy Upgrade Optimus Prime. And on that note, one thing to note about Nova Prime here is that people have gotten copies of Nova Prime that have either had missing parts or incorrect parts. I've seen two people who got a hold of Nova Prime and the laser gun and that he has was missing. And then someone actually showed that they actually got two of the front left wheels of Nova Prime's vehicle mode. The other wheel was missing. It was a duplicate copy of the same one. So, unfortunately, keep an eye out, because there are copies of Nova Prime where he has either weapons that are missing or the incorrect pieces. And so I actually opened him up and before I started the review to see if all his parts were there. And luckily, my copy of Nova Prime is not defective. It has all the correct parts that he's supposed to come with. Um, One thing to note about Nova Prime is that one of his signature weapons from IDW's comic books was a sword that he would use in battle at times. And some people have been saying they would have liked if Nova Prime had been given at least one new accessory piece, if he would have been given the sword that he uses in IDW's comic books. I decided to look around my Transformers collection to see if there were any figures with swords that I could give to Nova Prime, and so I decided to give Nova Prime the yellow sword that came with my Titan's Return. That came with the Titan's Return Optimus Prime figure. The sword doesn't sit too securely inside Nova Prime's hand, but yeah, there he is holding a sword. Or down there, just you can see what that looks like. So yeah, really impressive looking there. So if you have Titans Return Optimus Prime in your Transformers collection, you may want to consider that as a sword here for Nova Prime if you don't want to get a third-party upgrade set. So for some quick size comparisons, here is a Legacy Evolution Nova Prime next to the figure that he's repainted and retooled from, which is the a Siege Cybertron or Galaxy Upgrade Optimus Prime action figure. So again, as you can see, the amount of parts that are new and the amount of parts that are the same, the parts that are different and the parts that are the same. I was almost going to say old and new, but it's pretty evened out. It's like 50-50 between these two figures, but it is enough of a difference that you can tell that this is a version of Optimus Prime while this is Nova Prime. So there is enough of a distinction between the two figures. I won't go into articulation too much. Just note that just like the figures that he's mold mates with, Nova Prime's head is on a ball joint so it can swivel left and right 360 degrees. The arms have the potential to spin 360 degrees at the shoulder, forwards and backwards, but they can't really go backwards due to the wings. Bicep swivel, hinged elbows, wrist articulations due to you having to rotate the hands when you transform it into alt mode. No waist articulation due to the transformation with the backpack. Legs can only go out this far. They can go forward this far, but they're on very loud ratchet joints at the hip. Swivel joints in the thighs. Eyes, hinged knees, and the feet have ankle rockers. So if you want to get Nova Prime into a really sprawle-legged pose, you can. And he does stand fairly well on a flat surface, just like Siege Optimus Prime does. But that's partially because one newly sculpted part that was given to these versions of the mold that weren't given originally to Siege Ultra Magnus are these heel spurs that you can flip out. When you take Nova Prime out of the box for the first time, the heel spurs are actually flipped inside, so just take note that you have to flip these heel spurs out. They do offer a lot more stability on the feet and the legs when you flip them out entirely. But yeah, I'm just again, I'm speechless that we finally got an official action figure of Nova Prime, who arguably is one of the he's arguably the most well-known villain to be created originally for the Transformers comic books that were published by IDW. Now, I said that Nova Prime has been a pretty famous character ever since he was introduced for the first time in IDW's comic books at the start of the video of the review, and one of the reasons why that is because even though this is officially the first ever Nova Prime action figure that's been released, several years ago there was a Transformers action figure released, and a lot of Transformers fans and collectors got this action figure to use as Nova Prime, and that figure was it was released in the Combiner Wars line back in 2015. It is the officially named the Transformers Combiner Wars, or as I just lost the word for it, Combat Hero. No, not Combat Hero. Battle Core Optimus Prime. That's its name. Just look up Transformers Combiner Wars Battle Core Optimus Prime, and this is I was gonna review this figure originally before I got to reviewing Nova Prime, but I got sidetracked. Some of my more recent reviews, you've probably seen the figure standing behind me, but here it is. This is the Combiner Wars Battle Core or Optimus Prime action figure, and when this figure was announced for the first time in 2015 and everyone looked at it and they were like, oh, it's a mostly white Optimus Prime repaint that doesn't even look like Ultra Magnus. There was a consensus for a while that this might be the first Combiner Wars figure to shelf warm, but then this, in my opinion, was one of the first Transformers action figures to sell and be a successful, hard to find, and be a sought after Transformers action figure due to the power of social media. And right after this figure was announced, everyone who had been reading IDW's comic books looked at Battlecore Optimus Prime and they were like, hey, you know what? That figure very vaguely, looks a little like this character named Nova Prime from IDW's comic books. And that's how I found out about Nova Prime, was everyone saying that this figure looked like him. So, so until this brand new Legacy Evolution figure was released during the current year of 2023, back in 2015 and for the last 8 years, a lot of Transformers fans and collectors have used the Combiner Wars Battle Core Optimus Prime as a unofficial Nova Prime action figure, and that's the main reason I got this action figure, was to use it as Nova Prime. So yeah, even though this figure is officially named Battle Core Optimus Prime, this will always be Combiner Wars Nova Prime for me. So yeah, there's a size comparison of the first ever Nova Prime action figure with the first Hasbro released unofficial Nova Prime figure. So yeah, it's really great to see them standing side by side with each other. Um, One thing I do like to do with this figure is I like to actually use the combiner head instead of the instead of the individual robot mode head, just because of the tall ear antenna, and I felt helped this figure to look a little more like Nova Prime himself. But yeah, there's a Legacy Evolution Nova Prime next to Combiner Wars Nova Prime, just since that's the closest action figure I have to being another Nova Prime figure. So I won't go too much about these guys, but nice. But yes, even though I've had that Battle Core Optimus Prime figure in my collection since 2015, and I still don't regret getting this new Nova Prime action figure and adding it to my Transformers collection as well. So let's get Nova Prime transformed into the inner robot mode and see what that looks like. Alright, and so here is Nova Prime transformed into the smaller tractor cab robot, and I can't remember if he had this feature in IDW's comics where he could transform into a smaller robot or not, but yeah, the mostly white paint job here, even more so than Siege Ultra Magnus or even Kingdom Ultra Magnus. He still looks a lot like Ultra Magnus than he does Nova Prime. So there's a close up of the inner robot head right there. So it's so yes, again, I'm just really thrilled to finally have a action figure of Nova Prime here. So I'm speechless at having him in hand. I believe the only retooled parts that he has are the robot mode chest and the abdomen right here. That's the only parts of the inner tractor cab robot that are the same, that are different. Everything else about him is the same as Siege Cybertron Optimus Prime is. So bringing him in here, they are standing side by side with each other. One thing that some Transformers fans complained back in 2019 when this figure was released was that the smaller robot mode, it doesn't look a thing like the original Cybertron Optimus Prime figure, and instead, due to it transforming just like Ultra Magnus, this is actually what Cybertron Optimus Prime would look like if he transformed just like Generation 1 Optimus Prime. But yeah, I'm just really thrilled that Hasbro and Takara Tomy, when this looked back at this mold and envisioned seeing Nova Prime made from it. I might, even though I still have the original Cybertron Optimus Prime figure, the Siege Galaxy Upgrade Cybertron Optimus Prime, it's still one of my favorite Optimus Prime figures that's come out in recent years, and Nova Prime is of course no exception. And of course, for a size comparison in robot mode, again, here he is next to Combiner Wars Battle Core Optimus Prime with the actual non-combiner robot mode head deployed. So it's really nice to see these guys here. This right here, the inner head sculpt here, is what distinguishes this version from the original red and blue Combiner Wars Optimus Prime figure, and I can't remember if Nova Prime's head ever looked like this on IDW's comic books, where he had a gold crest, and it made him almost look like a combination of both Optimus Prime and G1 Prowl's heads mashed together. I honestly don't know if that's what Nova Prime's head looked like in IDW's comics, but the head on the new Legacy Evolution figure is pretty decent enough. One thing my camera is doing is it's making it look like there's more blue paint on one of his eyes than the other is, but in hand, it's not that there's more blue paint on the eye, it's that there's more silver paint on the mouth plate. So yeah, unfortunately, it makes my camera's making an optical illusion that one of Nova Prime's eyes is slightly larger than the other, but in hand they're the exact same size. So I apologize for my camera doing that. But yeah, the articulation is now more improved with the wings out of the way. It's the same joints the what I'm trying to say is the tractor cab, the smaller inner robot, the tractor cab robot, it uses the same aim joints that the larger robot used because it was just armored up plating on the back, shoulders, and legs. So you get the same. You use the exact same joints that we did with the full robot mode, where he's combined with all of his armor. So without further delay, let's get Nova Prime transformed into his vehicle mode, and we'll wrap up the review. Alright, so here is Nova Prime transformed into his vehicle mode. Odin. This is more or less the official weapons configuration where you place his guns and all of his parts in vehicle mode, going by the photos in both his instruction sheet and on the back of his box, where you have the two leg cannons here sticking out on the sides of the vehicle mode. But if you turn it, even when you're looking at it from the front and from an aerial perspective, the laser guns stick really far out to the sides, partially because the 5mm ports that they plug into, you can plug them into here on the side of Nova Prime's vehicle mode. They don't go back in that far, so you have multiple options. If you want to, you can have the keep the laser guns in the same spot they were when you had Nova Prime in his vehicle mode. So you can plug them back here on the top, or you can do what I like to do with my Siege Galaxy upgrade, Cybertron Optimus Prime, and just to and what I like to do just to fill in these fill in this gap area here on the front of the vehicle mode. I like to just to try and eliminate that gap. I like to put the laser guns like this here. I know it looks silly, but at least it fills in the gap nicely. But yeah, here more or less is Nova Prime in his alternate mode. And if you decide to give him a sword like I did, then unfortunately that ends up giving the vehicle mode even less of a symmetrical look, which is hindered by the cannons here. But yeah, you can plug it in on either side of the vehicle if you want, or you can even plug the sword up here onto the front ends of either one of these cannons if you want. But yeah, there is Nova Prime in his vehicle mode, and again, for being a repaint and a retool of the Siege Galaxy Upgrade Optimus Prime action figure, it does figure the figure itself is pretty fantastic looking. And yes, I just really enjoy. Again, I'm speechless having an official Nova Prime action figure. I never thought Nova Prime, due to how evil he is and how sinister his plans at bringing about the extinction of the Transformers race is in IDW's comic books. I never thought that we'd get an official action figure of him. So yes, I'm really impressed with how the Legacy Evolution figure came out. And again, for one last size comparison, here he is next to the Battle Core Optimus Prime figure. So this, for the last 8 years, has been for most Transformers fans and collectors their Nova Prime action figure. But yes, it's nice to have this new leader class official Nova Prime figure here now. Now, it rolls fairly well for what it does, but again, it's the same problem that Siege Ultra Magnus and Siege Cybertron Optimus Prime have, where there's hardly any clearance on the wheels, so it can only roll around well on a flat surface. Visually, one thing that you might find the most awkward looking part of Nova Prime's vehicle mode is the way the wings from his robot mode just sit here on the side, as metal chunks on the side of the vehicle mode, and I can kind of see now why a lot of collectors have been saying they wish the wings would have been articulated so you could fold them down if you wanted, so it doesn't look like he has a bunch of wings or fan blades sitting on the side of his vehicle mode. But apart from that, I think Nova Prime does a fairly fantastic job of being an imposing looking semi truck. To wrap up the video for the final proverbial question, do I recommend getting the Legacy Evolution IDW Universe Nova Prime action figure and adding it to your Transformers collection? I absolutely do. If you can get Nova Prime, get him, because you will not go wrong having this figure in your Transformers collection. I'm just ecstatic to finally have an official Nova Prime action figure here. Again, one thing I err on the side of caution is that when you're transforming Nova Prime, I know you can see in there, but be careful with the combined robot mode head, because on Amazon's official product photos, one of the horns is broken. Okay, so just be careful that that's one of the most fragile parts of Nova Prime, or his robot mode the horns on his robot mode head. But yeah, I do highly recommend you get this figure if you can. And if you have the Titans Return Optimus Prime action figure, I highly recommend you give Nova Prime the sword that came with that figure. So thank you guys so much for watching. This has been the TFA. Again, this has been my review for what for me personally was one of the most anticipated figures of the Transformers Legacy line. And it is the Leader Class Nova Prime action figure. I highly recommend you get Nova Prime if you can. So thank you guys all so much for your continued support. Thank you to all my friends. And until next time, you guys, stay safe, stay healthy, transform and roll out. Goodbye, everyone.